Everybody can see the screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. I'll some brief what we read yesterday. We started the chapter 4. How shall I serve? So yesterday we read Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur hosted the largest pilgrimage in Vrindavan, right? If you all remember, Parikrama. Yesterday we started the chapter 4. Okay, yeah. Then Prabhupada could join only one day, if you remember. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not compromise in utilizing whatever the modern techniques available, like others, being reserved. He rather wanted to use everything for Krishna service. He used the modern printing press for Prabhupada for his books. Then the big temple with 100 dioramas in Bagh Bazaar, right? 3 printing presses in 3 different languages. I think Bengali, English for Harmonist, and one for, I'm thinking one for Hindi. They didn't mention that language, but I'm thinking this is what. So then in 1514 AD, he invited everyone. Again, he hosted a very big, large crowd of Parikrama in Vrindavan. Prabhupada wanted to see, Prabhupada said, I must make it happen. So he made it, and he see how wonderfully they had hosted the Parikrama. Anything else I miss? This is which chapter? I don't know. We didn't read this much. Did we read this much?
And this is chapter 3, Prabhu. We have to go to 4.
Right. I don't know how chapter 3 came. Okay. So this is I think this whole section will come. Prabhupada will be seeking how I can serve you to a spiritual master. We haven't, yeah. This one, right? A camp. We discussed this one, right? You all remember pilgrims should rise. I can write this. We can read this again. Okay, yeah, I think we will. Okay, I'll read this from here. The camp was divided into sections and arranged in a semicircle, and pilgrims were assigned to a particular section for the night. In the center, there were quarters of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta and the deity of Lord Chaitanya, and close by the tents of the sannyasis. There were separate camps for ladies and men. Married couples did not stay together. There was also a voluntary corps of guards who stayed up all nights patrolling the area. At night, the camp, with its hundreds of tents with gas lights and campfires, resembled a small town. And local people would come to see, astonished at the arrangements. In the evening, everyone would gather to hear a discourse by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. The pilgrims would rise early each morning and chant Hare Krishna together. Then carrying the deity of Lord Chaitanya would set out in procession. Kirtan groups, the police band, the lead horse, the flag bearers, and all the pilgrims. They traveled to the holy places, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, the place where Lord Krishna slew Kamsa, the Adikesava temple, Radhakund, Syamkund, and many others. Isn't it very alluring? We'd like to go, right? I feel like going. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's massive pilgrimage had been rolling on with great success when he met with serious opposition. The local temple proprietors in Vrindavan objected to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's awarding the sacred Brahmanical thread to devotees not born in families of Brahmanas. This happened in Vrindavan. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, throughout his lectures and writings, had repeatedly proven from the Vedic scriptures that one is a Brahmana not by birth, but by qualities. He often cited a verse from Sanatana Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilas, stating that just as a base metal, when mixed with mercury, can become gold, so an ordinary man can become a Brahmana if initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. He also often cited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, in which the great sage Narada tells King Yudhishthir that if one is born in the family of a Sudra but acts as a Brahmana, he has to be accepted as a Brahmana. And if one is born in the family of a Brahmana but acts as a Sudra, he is to be considered a Sudra. Because the prime method of spiritual advancement in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of God. Any person who chants Hare Krishna should be recognized as a saintly person. So to give summary, again, this is such a wonderful arrangement Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made for parikrama. We have in a center his own tent, then deities surrounded by all other small tents. Morning, everyone gets up chanting Hare Krishna, then going on parikrama with flags, horses, and what else? Many kirtan parties, prasadam, police, but everything was there. Many wonderful places, pilgrimages, they all visited Syamkund, Radhakund. But here he sees the local opposition again. These smarta Brahmanas, who claim that they are the Brahmanas, no one else is Brahmana. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is steady, is determined in giving mercy to others based on their qualifications, not by birth.
When the local Panditas approached Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati for discussion, they questioned his leniency in giving initiation and his awarding the Brahminical thread and sannyas dress to persons of lower caste. Because of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's scholarly, forceful presentation, the Panditas seemed satisfied by the discussion. But when the Parikram party arrived at Vrindavan's 7 main temples, which had been erected by the immediate followers of Lord Chaitanya, the party found the doors closed. Vrindavan shopkeepers closed their businesses, and some people even threw stones at the passing pilgrims. But the Parikrama party, led by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, continued in good spirits, despite the animosity, and on October 28, the party arrived at Kosi, the site of the treasury of Krishna's father, King Nanda. Abhay arrived in Mathura by train from Allahabad and approached Koshi by rickshaw. The countryside was full of charm for Abhay. Instead of factories and large buildings, there were mostly forest, and aside from the main paved road on which he traveled, there were only dirty roads and soft sandy lanes. As a Vaishnava, Abhay felt sensations an ordinary man wouldn't. Now and then, he sighted a peacock in the field, its exotic plumage proclaiming the glories of Vrindavan and Krishna. Even a non-devotee, however, could appreciate the many varieties of birds, the interesting cries and songs filling the air. Occasionally, a tree would be filled with madly chirping sparrows, making their urgent twilight clamor before resting for the night. Even one unaware of the special significance of Vrindavan could feel relief of mind in this simple countryside where people built fires from cow manure fuel and cooked their evening meals in the open. Their fires adding rich natural smells to the indefinable mixture which was the odor of the earth. There were many gnarled old trees and colorful stretches of flowers, bushes of bright violet camellia, trees abloom with delicate white parijata blossoms, and big yellow kadamba flowers rarely seen outside Vrindavan. So, in summary, it says how the Panditas of the area came and tried to argue with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave such a forceful presentation and strong evidence that they were satisfied with his answer. But when the parikrama traveled to Vrindavan's 7 main temples, the temples closed the gates to them, and all the shopkeepers closed their businesses, and some people even threw stones at the pilgrims. And the party reached on October 28th at Koshi, where the site of the treasury of Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj. And then then it talks about how Abhay arrived in train, and when he was traveling in the live road, he liked it so much. As a Vaishnava, he felt sensations as one ordinary man wouldn't, by seeing the different forests and seeing the natural beauty of the place. And it would also say how people were living a simple lifestyle by using cameras, fuels, and whatever they use is all natural. And it explained the different flowers there were, especially the rare flower, which is the kadamba flower.
Yeah, thank you. So isn't it such a beautiful narration of the place? Prabhupada personally describes this. So anyone guess which year it was? Which year he went for pilgrimage? 1925? No, it's later. 1936? No. Okay, I had the wrong address. Anyway, so it says October 20 here anyway. Okay, anyway, did you all remember I gave you shared one of the video as a thank you for all of you for reading me? It is 1932. And that Maharaj, Radhanath Swami Maharaj describes also how Vrindavan used to be. And later, I think in 1980s, that Vrindavan, the video I shared with all of you, is 1980s. So Prabhupada is describing this from 1932, way before, we lost everything in Vrindavan anyway. So second, Prabhu, you can do this.
On the road, there was lively horse-drawn tanga traffic. The month of Kartika, October-November, was one of the several times of the year that drew many pilgrims to Vrindavan. The one-horse tangas carried large families, some coming from hundreds of miles away. Larger bands of pilgrims, grouped by village, walked together. The women dressed in bright-colored saris, brown-skinned men and women, sometimes singing bhajans, carrying but a few simple possessions as they headed for the town of thousands of temples, Vrindavan. And there were businessmen like Abhay, dressed more formally, coming from a city, maybe to spend the weekend. Most of them had at least some semblance of a religious motive: to see Krishna in the temple, to bathe in the holy Yamuna river, to visit the sites where Lord Krishna had performed his pastimes, such as lifting of Govardhan Hill, the killing of the Kesi demon, or the dancing in the evening with the gopis. Abhay was sensitive to the atmosphere of Vrindavan, and he noted the activity along the road. But more than that, he cherished with anticipation the fulfillment of his journey, his meeting again after a long separation, the saintly person he had always thought of within himself, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who had spoken to him in Calcutta and had convinced him of Lord Chaitanya's mission to preach Krishna consciousness. Abhay would soon see him again, and this purpose filled his mind. So here it is giving a description of Vrindavan during the month of Kartika, which was a holy month that drew many pilgrims to Vrindavan. There were a lot of one-horse tangas, which carried families and all the pilgrims coming from different places to see the many thousands of temples in Vrindavan. There would be people very neatly dressed and singing bhajans while going to the temples. And there were also businessmen like Abhay, who were formally dressed, and they were coming from the city to spend the weekend. Irrespective of from where the people came, everyone had the same motive, which was religious, to see the places where Lord Krishna performed his pastimes. And we also here also it is mentioned about Abhay cherishing this opportunity because this is an opportunity where he's going to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur after a long separation when he met with him in Calcutta. So he is looking forward for the meeting.
Very nice. Thank you. Lataji, you can go.
Upon reaching the lantern illuminated camp of the Gaudiya Mutt and inquiring at the registration post, he was allowed to join the Parikrama village. He was assigned to a tent of Grihastha men and was offered prasadam. The people were friendly and in good spirits, and Abhay talked of his activities with the Mata members in Calcutta and Allahabad. Then there was a gathering. A sannyasi was making an announcement. This evening, he said, there would be a scheduled visit to a nearby temple to see the deity of Seshasai Vishnu. Some of the pilgrims cheered, Hari Bol Hare Krishna. The sannyasi also announced that His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura would speak that evening for the last time and would be leaving the parikrama party the next day. So there was a choice of going on the parikrama or staying for the lecture. Srila Prabhupada. So I met them in Kosi, and Kesava Maharaja was informing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is going to Mathura tomorrow morning, and he will speak Harikatha this evening. Anyone who wants to may remain, or otherwise they may go to Sri Seshasai Vishnu. So at that time, I think only 10 or 12 men remained. Sridhar Maharaja was one of them, and I thought it wise. What can I see at this Seshasai? Let me hear what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati will speak. Let me hear. Prabhupada also joined that camp. So he was offered a Grihastha men cottage like kind of thing, and he was offered prasadam also. And the people there were all friendly and good. So there was an announcement that some people are going to visit Seshasai Vishnu temple. So and there is a lecture of Sri Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakura. So he had to decide whether he has to visit the temple and see Lord or has to listen to the lecture. So he decided to stay and listen to Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura's lecture. He thought it is the wise decision he could take. Among them, there were Sridhar Maharaja was also there. There were 10 people stayed to hear the lecture.
Very nice. This is always famous that, the Bani, the hearing from the spiritual master is more important than seeing. This is always beside this example. So basically, just brief those who have not been to any parikrama. So what they will announce what the whole plan for tomorrow. So here, this Prabhupada heard this the situation. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is going to leave tomorrow, and what is his schedule. So that's what is being presented here. Okay, Vijayanand Prabhu, you can read, please.
When Abhay arrived, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was already speaking. He sat with his back erect, a shawl around his shoulders, not speaking like a professional lecturer, giving a scheduled performance, but addressing a small gathering in his room. At last, Abhay was in his presence again. Abhay marveled to see and hear him, this unique soul possessed of Krishna Katha, speaking uninterruptedly about Krishna in his deep, low voice. In ecstasy and deep knowledge, Abhay sat and heard with rapt attention. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had been speaking regularly about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha is the stage of devotion service in which awareness of God is awakened. Abhideya is rendering loving service to the Lord, and Prayojana is the ultimate goal, pure love of God. He stressed that his explanations were in exact recapitulation of what he had originally been spoken by Krishna and passed down through disciplic succession. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's particular utterance, mostly Bengali but sometimes English, with frequent quoting of Sanskrit from the Shastras, was deep in erudition. It is Krishna, said Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is the only super lord over the entire universe and beyond it of Vaikuntha, the transcendental region. As such, no one can raise any obstacle against his enjoyment. Okay, so these two paras describe like Abhay's experience with attending the lecture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And basically, when he went there, the session was already started, and Bhaktisiddhanta was speaking. He had a shawl around his shoulders, and he was not like a professional lecturer, but he was conveying the message, the Krishna Katha, in like a deep and low voice. And Abhay listened to those Krishna Katha with great attention. And so regarding the description given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, so he was speaking regularly about three things, like three kinds of things, basically Sambandhana, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So basically Sambandhana deals with the devotional service in which the awareness of God is awakened, and Abhideya is rendering loving service to the Lord, and Prayojana is the ultimate goal, pure love of God. So he stressed the explanations of all three basically different types of devotion service, and he also mentioned like these things were directly spoken by Krishna, and it is reaching to the people who are present there through proper disciplic succession, and also it also describes about like what kind of wordings so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was using. He was mostly using Bengali, and to give the references he was using Sanskrit, and so he was explaining about Krishna and his pastimes for those gathering there.
Thank you. I think everybody should know this one. This our movement is based on these three jnana. Sambandha means it's like we say our relationship with Krishna. That knowledge which provides, without relationship, without knowledge, there won't be relationship. So what kind of relationship we have? Then Avideya is to strive for this relationship, and Prayojana is, after we achieve this relationship, what we do. These are the three things. That is called three jnanas. Okay, who is this one, right? Babita, you can read.
Yes, Prabhu. An hour went by, 2 hours. The already small gathering in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's room gradually thinned. A few sannyasis left, excusing themselves to tend to duties connected with the parikrama camp. Only a few intimate leaders remained. Abhay was the only outsider. Of course, he was a devotee, not an outsider, but in the sense that he was not a sannyasi, was not handling any duties, was not even initiated, and was not traveling with the parikrama but had joined only for a day. In that sense, he was an outsider. The philosophy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was speaking, however, was democratically open to whoever would give an ardent hearing, and that Abhay was doing. He was listening with wonder. Sometimes he would not even understand something, but he would go on listening intently, submissively, his intelligence drinking in the words. He felt Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati revealing to him the direct vision of the spiritual world, just as a person reveals something by opening a door or pushing aside a curtain. He was revealing the reality, and this reality was loving service to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna, the supremely worshipable personality of Godhead. How masterfully he spoke, and with utter conviction and boldness. So, to summarize, Prabhupada tells us what happened at the lecture. So, as time passed on, as it was 2 hours ahead, people were becoming less and less, and the crowd was very small. And at last, it became only intimate devotees were there, sannyasis. So Prabhupada felt that he was an outsider there because all of them were initiated and some of them are sannyasis. So he felt out like an outsider. But they say here that the philosophy that he was talking about was open to everybody who can listen ardently, who can listen with a wanting to learn something. So, and this how Prabhupada listened to the lecture. Akshara, can you please calm down? I'm sorry, Prabhu, the kids are with me. So, and this how Prabhupada liked the lecture. He wanted to, even though he don't understand, he would still go on listening because he wanted to learn so many things. And then it felt to him as if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ji is actually revealing him something to him by opening the door or pushing the curtain aside. Like it was as if the ultimate truth kind of thing. And this reality was loving service to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna. So yeah, he spoke masterfully, and Prabhupada ji loved that.
Yeah. Hearing is the essence, very nice. And Prabhupada here is outside because he was not fully committed. He's not part of the congregation. He's, when you join occasionally, you're not really the part of that. That's why he himself he's saying himself as outsider. Later he committed, right? That's the way bhakti begins, by hearing from acharyas. Prasanthi, you please.
It was with such awe that Abhay listened with fastened attention. Of course, all Vaishnavas accepted Krishna as their worshipable Lord, but how conclusively and with what sound logic was the faith of Vaishnavas established by this great teacher? After several hours, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati stopped speaking. Abhay felt prepared to go on listening without cessation. And yet, he had no puzzling doubts or queries to place forward. He wanted only to hear more. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made his exit, Abhay bowed, offered his obeisances, and then left the intimate circle of sannyasis in their row of tents and went to the outer circle of tents. His mind surcharged with the words of his spiritual master. Now their relationship seemed more tangible. He still treasured his original impression of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the saintly person who had spoken to him on the rooftop in Calcutta. But tonight, that single impression that had sustained him for years in Allahabad had been enriched and filled with new life. His spiritual master and the impression of his words were as much a reality as the stars in the sky and the moon over Vrindavana. The impression of the hearing from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was filling him with its reality, and all other reality was forming itself around the absolute reality of Srila Gurudeva, just as all the planets circle around the sun. So Abhay continued listening with fastened attention of what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is speaking, and he really was enchanted and wanted to continue listening to it. After several hours, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati stopped and he left the room, but Prabhupada don't have any queries or anything to put forward, and then he left. He felt very happy because he had some original impression of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati when he met in the rooftop at Calcutta, but now that was completely enriched, and he was happy to have the association of his spiritual master, and he was cherishing those moments. And it felt like as real as the sky and moon over Vrindavana.
Thank you so much. So it looks like the way it appears, there is no so much intimate relationship. Means Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur he didn't get a separate special attention or anything, the way it sounds like. But Prabhupada took into his heart the words of his spiritual master. And every time he gives that credit, that because I heard with rapt attention to the words of my spiritual master. That's why those who want to advance in spiritual life must develop the ability to hear. Hearing is very much needed for progressing devotional service. Pranath Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna. We are starting from the next morning, or
Yeah, the next morning.
the next morning, Abhay was up with the others more than an hour before dawn, bathed and chanting mantras in congregation. Later in the morning, the tall, stately figure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, dressed in plain saffron, got into the back seat of a car and rode away from the camp. Thoughtful and grave, he looked back and waved, accepting the loving, farewell gestures of his followers. Abhay stood amongst them. A little more than a month later, Abhay was again anticipating an imminent meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, this time at Allahabad. Abhay had only recently returned from Vrindavan to his work at Prayag Pharmacy when the devotees at the Allahabad Gaudiya Math informed him of the good news. They had secured land and funds for constructing a building. The Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would be coming on November 21st to preside over the ceremony for the laying of the cornerstone. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of the United Provinces, would be the respected guest and in a grand ceremony would lay the foundation stone in the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. When Abhay learned that there would also be an initiation ceremony, he asked if he could be initiated. Atulananda, the Matha's president, assured Abhay that he would introduce him to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. At home, Abhay discussed his initiation plans with his wife. She had no objection, but she did not want to take initiation herself. They were already worshipping the deity at home and offering their food to the deity. They believed in God and were living peacefully. Wow. As we continue that discussion, that Prabhupada there's no special attention given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. After that congregation, when he left from there. But then a little later, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was scheduled to come to Allahabad. When the Gaudiya Math devotees informed that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was coming to be the chief guest, the way I read it as the rest, yeah. And then Abhay was heard about the initiation ceremony and was harboring the desire to be initiated, and the Mata's president gave assurance to Prabhupada that he would introduce him. And although his wife was not too keen to get initiated, but she had no objection to Prabhupada getting initiated.
So Prabhupada took initiation at the age of 38, looks like. Huh?
I thought it was a little younger, right, Prabhu?
This is 1932.
He was almost 36, 37. Yeah.
No,
1896.
1896. Oh, okay, I added 6, so basically 36, right? Interesting. So I think the way it appears like he took the, that what do you call Altaganj, right? Where Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, said, "You English young gentlemen, why don't you preach? Young gentlemen, why don't you preach English? All over." So I think he took it seriously. Prabhupada took it seriously. Maybe Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati just told. Words coming from the mouth of a pure devotee is a blessing.
Yes, and also it's just sweet to read. I'm not comparing or anything, but generally, what devotees go through prior to initiation, and hankering to get some attention from the spiritual master that they are aspiring. It's just very sweet to read, Prabhupada's pastimes like that.
Yes, it's very nice. Interesting. Because it's interesting. It's interesting because, Prabhupada was very occupied with his business and everything, but Krishna had his own plans. Anyway, I think pure devotees is very difficult to compare, because Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they took so long for them to get initiated and everything, but actually they're eternal associates of Lord Krishna and Radharani. I think their lives are very special.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who is going to read now?
So Divya is here. Can she read?
But for Abhay, that was not enough. Although he would not force his wife, he knew that he must be initiated by a pure devotee. Avoiding sinful life, living piously, these things were necessary and good, but in themselves they did not constitute spiritual life and could not satisfy the yearning of the soul. Life's ultimate goal and the absolute necessity of the self was love of Krishna. The love of Krishna, his father had already inculcated within him, and now he had to take the next step. His father would have been pleased to see him do it. With what he had learned from his father was now being solidified by someone capable of guiding all the fallen souls of the world to transcendental love of God. Abhay knew he would go forward and take complete shelter in the instructions of his spiritual master, and the scriptures enjoined. He who is desirous of knowing the absolute truth must take shelter of a spiritual master who is in disciplic succession and who is fixed in Krishna consciousness. Even Lord Chaitanya, who was Krishna himself, had accepted a spiritual master, and only after initiation did he manifest the full symptoms of ecstatic love of Krishna while chanting the holy name. So I think here it's emphasizing the same thing my Prabhu was explaining of how we go through all these different emotions, and it's pretty much same for in the Prabhupada's journey also. And then it was very interesting to see that he did not force his wife, and that's even though he could have, he did not force his wife, but at the same time he knew what he wanted to do. Like all through this, that's what I have been getting from day one of reading this, that in every step there is this thing that I can feel is that his Prabhupada's desire or Prabhupada's motivation or his goal is always clear. He has been a little boy, he has been playing, but his goal is still clear. He was doing Rath Yatra, he was learning from his father. Still, the goal was clear in his head. He was little young, going to college, doing all the things that everyone does, but still his goal was clear in his mind. He got married, he had his responsibilities, but still his goal was still clear. And even at this stage when this is like a big step, of taking initiation and taking that responsibility. Again, the goal is very clear. The ultimate goal is, like it says here, life's ultimate goal and absolute necessity of the self was love of Krishna. And he got that from his father, and he's just taking it further in as a next step with the initiation here. So um, that's
I,
my understanding.
I think that's a very nice point, as you mentioned. In every step, he was focused. His conviction and his future is clear. That's the difference between the materialistic man who they have a career, but they don't know what is their goal is,
Yeah.
and their goal will end at certain time, But here, Prabhupada is also have his career. He's not compromising anything with his business, family, everything. But he's very clear about his spiritual journey. Looks like in each and every
Yeah.
aspect.
And it
So,
also shows that the challenges that he is facing, it's not like he didn't have any challenges. He knew what he had to do, and he's just following it. No, like as a boy, he had challenges. As a young man in college, he had challenges. Listening from professors who didn't have any faith in his philosophy. And when he was young, he went to Puri, and his expectation was like everybody's going to be like saintly, and then he ended up in his this place where they served him meat. It's not like he didn't have it. Everything was rosy, and he just had to go through the steps. He had all the challenges, and in spite of that, the goal was really clear, and he kept on moving forward and moving forward.
I hope everybody got it. It's a very nice thing, actually. It's a big lesson because we also may be in similar kind of boat, our journey, but at least we make okay, I don't know what are the plans for everybody. At least we can, okay, when the opportunity comes, I want to submit everything and serve the movement and serve Prabhupada. That's very nice example actually here. Prabhupada went through even late of his youth. Oh, okay. Srikara?
As for the ritual initiation he has received at age 12 from a family priest, Abhay had never taken it very seriously. It had been a religious formality. But a guru was not a mere officiating ritualistic priest. So Abhay had rejected the idea that he had already had a guru. He had never received instructions from him in bhakti, and his family guru had not linked him through disciplic succession with Krishna. But by taking initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would be linked with Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta, son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, was the guru in the 12th disciplic generation from Lord Chaitanya. He was the foremost Vedic scholar of the age, the expert Vaishnava who could guide one back to Godhead. He was empowered by his predecessor to work for the highest welfare by giving everyone Krishna consciousness, the remedy for all sufferings. Abhay felt that he had already accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as a spiritual master and that from their very first meeting he had already received his orders. Now, if Bhaktisiddhanta would accept him as his disciple, the relationship would be confirmed. He was coming so soon after Abhay had seen and heard him in Vrindavan. That was how Krishna acted through his representative. It was as if his spiritual master, in coming to where Abhay had his family and business, was coming to draw him further into spiritual life, without Abhay's having attempted to bring it about. His relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was deepening. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was coming to him as if by a higher arrangement. So here we see that Srila Prabhupada, like he was initiated from his family priest when he was 12 years of age. But Prabhupada never considered that initiation very seriously because he never received any instruction from his guru, and neither was his guru a part of any disciplic succession. So he never considered that serious at any moment. Whereas if he gets initiated from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that's a disciplic succession. So he'll be connected to Krishna, like, to the chain. And then Yeah, and then and Abhay also felt that he already accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his guru in his heart. And then he also felt that he already received the instruction when he first met him in Calcutta to preach, because he knows English. So he already felt he has received instructions, and then he felt a very strong connection with him. And then he saw all this happening. He's meeting him for the third time. It's all this as Krishna's arrangement. It's like as if his spiritual master himself is coming to his place to bring him more closer to Krishna. So he felt that the relation with his guru, with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is like deepening more and more.
Thank you.
On the day of the ceremony, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati met with his disciples at the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt on South Malacca Street. While he was speaking Harikatha and taking questions, Atulananda Brahmachari took the opportunity to present several devotees, Abhay amongst them, as candidate for initiation. The Allahabad devotees were proud of Mr. De, who regularly attended the mutt in the evening and led bhajans, listened to the teachings and spoke them himself, and often brought respectable guests. He had contributed money and had induced his business colleagues also to do so. With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abhay, he likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. As the moment and the words became impressed into his being, Abhay was in ecstasy. Atulananda was pleasantly surprised that his Gurudeva was already in approval of Mr. De. Other disciples in the room were also pleased to witness Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's immediate acceptance of Mr. De as a good listener. Some of them wondered when or where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had arrived at such an estimation of the young pharmacist. So on the day of the ceremony, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati met all the disciples at Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt, and while he was speaking Harikatha and taking questions, Atulananda Brahmachari took the opportunity to present all the devotees who were going for the initiation, and Abhay was amongst them. And so all the devotees in Allahabad were very proud of Mr. De, that because he used to attend daily in the evening. I mean, he used to come to the mutt daily in the evening and give lectures, and even he used to listen to the teachings. And he also contributed money to the mutt, and even he used to bring many respectable guests to the mutt. So finally, Abhay and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were face to face, and immediately Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati recognized Abhay, and he said, like, while seeing only Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told that he'll accept Abhay here as his disciple. So by listening to these words, Abhay was in ecstasy, and Atlananda was pleasantly surprised that Mr. De, Gurudeva already knew Mr. De, and the other disciples who were in the mutt were very pleased to witness that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati already accepted Mr. De as his disciple. And while others were wondering when and where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati met this young pharmacist.
Right. So it's a big lesson from it. If we analyze, how the sincerity of devotion when you find in the devotees, seriousness is, this is the account. I have seen also those who have developed the taste for submissive hearing, inquiring, they grew in spiritual life. Sincere, and that's the whole conversation of conclusion of the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai also, you all know everything, the success depends on the genuine desire to hear. If one doesn't have a desire to hear, you spend millions of years, there is no progress. And Prabhupada is a very example, and he always cites this situation that I always wanted to hear my spiritual master. AJ, it's your turn, please.
Actually, you know what? I'm driving, so I probably can't read right now, but thank you.
Oh, okay, no problem. That's good. So I think it's me. I hope everyone got the opportunity. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was seated on a Vyasasana, and the room was filled with guests and the members of the Gaudiya Math. Those to be initiated sat around a small mound of earth, where one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's sannyasis prepared a fire and offered grains and fruits into the flames, while everyone chanted mantras for purification. Our sister and brother were present, but not his wife. Sister and brother were present. Our basked in the presence of his Gurudev. Yes, he likes to hear the words of his spiritual master, and his glance of recognition had remained. If it doesn't want. The words of the spiritual master and his glance of recognition had remained with Abhay. Abhay would continue pleasing his spiritual master by hearing well. Then he thought, I'll be able to speak well. The Vedic literature described 9 processes of devotional service, the first of which was Sravanam, hearing about Krishna. Then came Kirtanam, chanting about and glorifying him. By sitting patiently and hearing at Kasi, he had pleased Krishna's representative. And when Krishna's representative was pleased, Krishna was pleased. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had not praised him for donating money to the Matha, or hadn't advised him to forsake his family and business and travel with him, nor had he asked Abhay to perform great austerities like the yogis who mortify their bodies with fast and difficult vows. But he likes to hear, he had said. I marked him, Abhay thought about it, and again listened carefully as a spiritual master conducted the initiation. So this is at the time of initiation. Abhay's initiation was participated by his brother and sister, sister and brother. I didn't know where Abhay had a brother. I never know. Yeah, maybe I forgot. Abhay Bast. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
He had a brother.
Yeah, they talk about his brother in the previous chapter after the father died.
Yes.
Oh, he does,
I
yeah?
believe.
Okay. So basically, he was primarily wanted to please him, his spiritual master. You know, if by hearing spiritual master is Krishna is pleased when he sees the devotee is, you know, sincerely willing to hear. Then he thought, I'll be able to speak as well. So among Vedic 9 processes of devotional service, Sravanam comes first. If you cannot hear, nothing goes. And then interesting thing is that even though he donated, you know, even if he assisted many other ways, but primarily his hearing quality was glorified. And that's the success. And here it says, you may have all these things in a yogi, there's nothing needed to become yogi, so much of austerity, but at least one should hear, all other things will follow. All other things will follow. That's what is Prabhupada again repeating the same thing of hearing Krishna Gata by providing the facilities. Garang, you want to do?
By the way, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called for Abhay to come forward and receive the Harinam initiation by accepting his beads. After offering prostrated obeisances, Abhay extended his right hand and accepted the strand of japa beads from the hand of his spiritual master. At the same time, he also received the sacred Brahmanical thread, signifying second initiation. Usually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave the first initiation, Harinam, and only after some time, when he was satisfied with the progress of the disciple, would he give the second initiation. But he offered Abhay both initiations at the same time. Now Abhay was a full-fledged disciple, a Brahmana, who could perform sacrifices such as this fire yajna for initiation. He could worship the deity in the temple and would be expected to discourse widely. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta added Aravinda, lotus, to his name. Now he was Abhay Charanaravinda. After Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left for Allahabad for Calcutta, Abhay keenly felt the responsibility of working on behalf of his spiritual master. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed Abhay to study Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which outlined the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees and explained how a devotee can advance in spiritual life. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was a law book for devotional service, and Abhay would study it carefully. He was glad to increase his visits to Allahabad Center and to bring new people. Even at his first meeting with his spiritual master, he had received an instruction to preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and now he began steadily and carefully considering how to do so. Preaching was a responsibility at least as binding as that of home and business. Even his home, he wanted to engage as far as possible in preaching. He discussed with his wife about his plans for inviting people into their home, offering them prasadam, and holding discussions about Krishna. She didn't share his enthusiasm. So, in summary, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called Abhay for his turn to be initiated, and at that time he was first initiated and second initiated, meaning that now he could perform sacrifices like the fire yajna for initiation. He could do deity worship, and he would be expected to discourse and preach to everyone. And his initiation name was Abhay Charanaravinda. And after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, Abhay felt like he should work on behalf of his spiritual master, do what his spiritual master told him. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had instructed Abhay to read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, which outlines the loving exchanges between the devotees and Krishna, and is also known as the law book for devotional service. And it also explained how Abhay would love to preach and bring new people to the Allahabad Center. And he also wanted to start preaching at his home by inviting people to their home and offering them prasadam and holding discourse about Krishna. But his wife did not share the same enthusiasm.
Yeah, maybe one more person will start. I'll just finish this one. Second, you can do this.
Srila Prabhupada, my wife was a devotee of Krishna, but she had some other idea. Her idea was just to worship the deity at the home and live peacefully. My idea was teaching. It was not possible for Abhay to travel with his spiritual master or even to see him often. His pharmaceutical business kept him busy and he traveled frequently. Whenever possible, however, he tried to time a business trip to Calcutta when his spiritual master was also there. Thus, over the next 4 years, he managed to see his spiritual master perhaps a dozen times. Whenever Abhay visited Calcutta, the assistant librarian at the Gaudiya Mutt, Nityananda Brahmachari, would meet him at Howrah train station with a 2-horse carriage belonging to the Mutt. Nityananda saw Abhay as an unusually humble and tolerant person. As they rode together to the Mutt, Abhay would inquire eagerly into the latest activities of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his traveling, his publishing, how many centers were currently open, how his disciples were doing. They wouldn't talk much about Abhay's business. Abhay would stay at the Gaudiya Mutt usually for about 5 days. Sometimes he would visit one of his sisters who lived in Calcutta. But his main reason for coming was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Abhay would take advantage of every opportunity to hear him. So here in these two paragraphs, we saw like Srila Prabhupada mentions that even his wife was a devotee. She used to worship the deity, Krishna's deity at his house. But her idea was different. She was not interested in preaching, whereas Prabhupada's interest was preaching. So, and Abhay, with his because he's an entrepreneur in his business, he was quite busy. He traveled frequently, and he used to time his visits to Calcutta such a way that when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj was there, he would plan his trips. So over the next 4 years, he met his spiritual master like a dozen times. And whenever he visited Calcutta, he used to stay at the Gaudiya Math. One devotee named Nityananda Brahmachari would meet him and pick him up and bring him to the Math. And on their way, as they travel, they used to always speak about the movement, about the activities of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, like how many centers were open, how his disciples were doing. They wouldn't talk about Abhay's business. He would only go to visit his sisters sometimes, but his main reason was to meet Bhaktisiddhanta, and he would take every advantage of it.
So seems like Prabhupada has already taken into his heart constantly now, because when he's meeting, already his desire is this, assist this movement. Otherwise, based on that talk, based on that conversation you do, it shows what is in your heart. So basically, he's interested in now the development of this society. How is his publishing, how many centers and disciples are doing, and everything. That's the vision. That's always mindset of the person who's already into it. So, am I mute? No. Okay. Should we go for a little reflection again, even if we discussed? Can we any quick reflections?
He was initiated.
Loudly, yeah.
He was initiated, and his initiated name was Abhay Charan Aravinda.
Thank you. Anyone else?
He was initiated twice in the beginning only.
Yeah, both the initiation, Brahmin and Harinam, he got in the same time. Thank you.
And we also read that he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur when we had the big Vrindavan Parikrama, which was a very big Parikrama, and he met at Kosi, which was the place of the treasury of Nanda Maharaj. So he met, and he preferred listening to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur rather than going on the parikrama to visit his Shai Vishnu temple.
Yeah, Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitate Koryo. This is the very nice. This every day. I don't know how many of us chant this prayer every day. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitate Koryo. Means when spiritual master's words one should take into the heart. That's it. It's like a making lines in the rock, stone. I think Prabhupada is showing his success because I was always very fixed in hearing desire, because he can see the nectar is coming. That's why he decided when spiritual master is speaking, they know that all the pilgrimage places is there. That's more priority. Thank you. Huh? Yeah, first meeting, first day when Prabhupada met in the closed room, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur discussed about the three jnanas, Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojanas jnana. So he heard with rapt attention, and Krishna is the absolute truth. Any other things?
I was going to ask, so in the last verse there where it's talking about how they would come and pick him up,
at the train station, and on the way back, he would ask, lots of questions about, about the activities, but would rarely talk about his business activities and things like that. Do you think that is kind of a bit of shame on his part in terms of not, feeling that he's not doing what he's supposed to, in the sense that, Bhaktisiddhanta had said, hey, I want you to go, spread the word in English to the rest of the world, but he was still kind of beholden to his householder life, right? His business life to an extent. Or is it just that he was primarily interested in the activities of the movement?
Right. So basically what we see is that Prabhupada still remembers his instructions, and Prabhupada has taken his instruction into the heart, but he's contemplating on that aspect. But at the same time, this worldly development, mundane business and economic development, they are not considered very important. To be too frank, I can tell you, when people come, sometimes when people come and we discuss, we ask them, from our side, we can ask them how is everything, but really just to have inspire the person, but we don't have, devotees have no much interest in this, and Prabhupada understand that it's not a big thing what he's doing. It gives the opportunity to the other person, who came assistant, right? Librarian. Oh, Nityananda Brahmachari came. It gives the opportunity to Nityananda Brahmachari to ask from his side, if he wanted to ask how you're doing. Then Prabhupada can open up a little bit about it. But he knows that it's not a great thing he's doing. He's just spending his family and working his duties. But okay. It shows that how Prabhupada was already taken so inspired to assist, to serve the Gaudiya Math. And that's why his interest is, whatever the subject you're interested in, that's what you're going to inquire.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you. I was just curious. Thanks for that.
So Prabhu, I have one question. When he got initiated, the name which was given to him was Abhay Charnarvinda. So at that time, Das was not added.
No, Das is there.
Oh, it's
there. Abhay Charnarvinda Das. Then
same name remains same, Prabhu. Abhay is also there.
Abhay, no, okay. That's course. Name, it depends on spiritual master. What do they give? For all of you, remember, few things is inconsistent. You will see that many times the name can begin with your first syllable, mostly, like K, P, whatever it is, name generally starts with that. That's one thing. And second thing is, you will always find if your parents had given any spiritual name already, the spiritual master keeps that and adds further, purifies it, elaborates it. So and so Das.
Oh, Krishna Kirtan Das.
Yeah, my parents gave Krishna.
Yeah, that's right. They kept same.
Yeah. And now Pranath Prabhu is there. His name is Pramod, right? So his name starts with P. Then Nikunja Gopika Mataji is there. Her name is Nina. So based on Nikunja Gopika, like that. But there's no restriction to it. It's just they give. Idea is that to show our spiritual identity. To connect a particular, put ourselves, they connect us to a particular aspect of the Lord's service. Somehow or other, we spiritual master helps us to serve in that mode. Make sense? I have not given initiation, so I won't talk much about it. Yeah, I pray that and the 10 of you or 15 of you, whatever it is, our movement understand the treasure, what Prabhupada got into his heart. Certainly transformation is taking place in his. I know time is running out. Maybe tomorrow before we start, we will give a little brief. But I want to thank you so much. Please contemplate on these subjects, especially this very deep subject we discussed. It depends on our progress. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai.